Hello, and welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias, and today we're talking about Legion.
Great big welcome to you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I know that we talked about this at the end last week, but just wanted to give a shout out to our listeners right at the very beginning here to say thank you so much for being part of our community and being part of our conversation. So just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah.
For this week, we're going to need to do a couple of warnings for you. The first one is a spoiler alert. If you have not yet seen the show Legion, we're going to be talking about almost every single episode.
Which you can see on FX, right?
Yes.
And Hulu.
Hulu has them. They add it like a few days after they come out, but since the entire season is over now, or the first season, that you don't need to worry about, waiting.
Yeah. You can it's definitely binge watch worthy.
Yeah. You'll lose an entire weekend.
Yes.
That's a rabbit hole that you're gonna. Yeah.
No.
Oh, you're not gonna sleep that night either. Just to warn you.
No. If you're like me and are a very sensitive soul, you will have nightmares about yellow eyes.
Yeah, about the main antagonist. It's. But we're gonna talk about him here in a little bit because he's kind of what the main crux of the main main point that we're gonna be talking about this week. Also, we need to give a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about some mental health issues and some other things, substance abuse. So if any of those are a trigger for you, take necessary precautions. Listen with a friend.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to go too deep into it, but just a friendly warning. So before we jump into that, I want to do our summary and review is kind of what we've been doing of all of our media that we've been consuming for the past few weeks. So I just wanted to say really quickly a great big shout out to New Rockstars. I know we've mentioned them a couple of times, but they're fantastic.
Yeah, their breakdowns of everything have just been wonderful. And in fact, we talked about them last week with The Walking Dead, and they were doing a weekly breakdown of Legion as well.
But it just got too overwhelming.
Yeah, there's a whole lot in every single one of these episodes, and that's my summary. That's why I wanted to put that in there. Was that each of these episodes was deep. There was so much in there with symbology, with imagery, and everything else that was just. The director was kind of weaving all of it together with the music and the story and everything else. It was beautifully put together. By far, I think one of the best television shows since Breaking Bad. I have to say Breaking Bad by far is my absolute highest of TV has ever gotten. This Legion is kind of quickly gaining on it. So it's going to be, maybe second, depending on how the next few seasons go.
Oh, and for those of you who aren't really familiar with Legion, so Legion is actually a mutant. He is part of the X-Men canon. However, FX, which is the channel that it's on, they and the director have stated that there's not going to be there's not going to be any
overlap.
Yeah, overlap between the X-Men movie franchise and Legion. You do see and kind of mention other mutants and other things in the comic books, but in terms of tying it in with the movie franchise, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you get a brief image of the X-Men cinematic universe with a showing of Professor Xavier's wheelchair, but
yeah, but that's more of a necessary to tie in who Legion is because again, spoiler alert, Legion is Professor Xavier's son.
Yep. But yeah, the summary of the show is basically follows Legion, David, and kind of his origin story, as it were. Very beautifully and well put together, and so I don't want I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't watched it. And those of you who have, we're going to go into depth. We're going to jump right in, assuming that you have watched the series.
But we're supposed to give a summary. And
it's hard to
the
summarize.
The summary is like, we're not going to give you a summary. It's beautiful.
Well, that's what I'm saying is it's really hard to summarize because it really takes... It's very shortly, it's the origin story of David.
I can probably... Okay. So we meet David, and he is in a mental hospital. We know that something has happened in the past in order to land him here. While he's there, he's hanging out with his friend, Lenny. Lenny is a character that you can kind of tell like influences the way that he like thinks and feels about the other characters in his realm, and is going to be pretty important later on. He also meets Sydney there as well, and that's kind of where it all like takes off because at the mental ward they're like doing experiments on him because they know he has powers, but they're not entirely sure how much power he has, right?
Yeah, so that was not brief because you just
okay. Anyway,
you just summarized the first episode.
I did just.
That was just the first episode.
And then one thing led to another.
One thing led to another.
One thing led to another, and now.
And then the Shadow King was released into the world.
Yes.
So,
Summary.
all right. Well, anyways, like I said, there's a whole lot. It's very hard to summarize. And it's very basically the origin story for David, for Legion.
Mm-hmm. I tried. Okay, give me credit for trying.
Okay, so we're gonna. I want to talk a lot about the Shadow King, about what I'm going to call facing the yellow-eyed devil. In the very first episode, David refers to this yellow-eyed devil, and you don't really understand what it is or who it is mm-hmm. until maybe midway through the season.
Well, because you see glimpses of him, like he's in the background, a lot of scenes. He's even in his like childhood memories. Like you have to find him sometimes, but he's there, mm-hmm. which New Rockstars points out.
You don't even see him. You didn't even find out that until the very end of the season. Which is beautiful. That's why it's hard to summarize because it's all kind of woven together. It's for those of you who are comic book nerds and already know, he's the Shadow King. Shadow King is the reason why Professor Xavier put together the X-Men. Amal Farouk was it's thought to be the oldest mutant. Is thought to be a being of pure energy that decided to take human form by being this parasitic, psychic parasite.
Would you say that his powers, like he's, what are they called? Mega mutant? No.
Alpha level, Omega level mutant? What are they called?
Like the highest level power. Like he has, like, his power, I would say is a little bit less actually than David's power, because David's able to defeat him. The form that he is at that time. Yeah.
In the comic books, he fed on hatred. He fed on the hatred of human beings to really gain his power. Here in the television series, the Shadow King actually, I think it's been adapted to feed on the fear of human beings. And that's why he kind of keeps David in this weird kind of constant state of anxiety. And
not knowing what the truth is, like not knowing what his real past is like, as we find out later.
And I think this has a lot to do with the themes of the show. The show across the entire first season is basically about struggling with our inner demons, and that's kind of what it came across to me.
And it's not just David, too. Of course, I could be completely
wrong, but yeah.
No, I agree, and it's not just David. Like you see that struggle, like with the other characters as well, too. Mm-hmm. Like you can see that each character has their own stuff they're going through.
Well, and this is so big because it has a lot to do with well, what I've been doing through my whole transition is coming to terms with some of my inner demons, with anxiety, with depression, with trying to figure out who I am in the world and where my place is. And I mean, we all have our own inner demons. We all have our little things that we deal with. And I think that this is why I couldn't summarize it well enough, is because I knew that this is kind of what the whole show is about, and this is the best way to summarize it. Is that you don't find out until like near the end that the Shadow King kind of came into David's life as a baby. And you see this at the very beginning of the show, but you don't realize what's going on unless you're actually really paying attention. You really or you watched the new Rockstars summaries of the episodes afterwards. But that it was there from the very beginning. And this is, I think, what it has to do with the inner demon struggle as well, is that with all of us, we all have that moment. We know that we thought, oh, it's going to be harmless if we try this out, harmless if we do this, and that inner demon kind of takes hold at that moment, gets that foothold in our lives, and begins to manipulate our lives in ways that aren't exactly who we were meant to be or who we actually are, because that inner demon needs to feed on us, on some level of us, and that's why I think it was such a good choice to take the Shadow King into the show, was because using the Shadow King's feeding on the fear of David throughout the show shows that how much that inner demon just kind of grows and becomes more and more powerful, and becomes more and more that big thing in the life, that controlling aspect of that person. And you see this throughout David in the very beginning of the show. He's a mess.
Yes.
He's you can't tell what reality is. He can't tell what reality is.
Like, he is convinced, and the doctors have also told him as well too, that he has that he's schizophrenic, that he this is all made up in his head, that we learn actually that he's not schizophrenic. All of the stuff that is messed up in his brain, all of the weird memories that he has that aren't actual memories or that have been like twisted and distorted, are all due to the Shadow King going in and manipulating his memory, which is very similar to how certain mental illnesses and certain drugs also work as well too. Certain drug addicts also experience this sometimes as well.
Well, it also has a lot to do with his power as well. If you're not familiar with Legion, Legion has the mutant ability of being able to absorb other mutants and other beings into his brain, and kind of become them. Which is why a lot of the covers of his comics are kind of like the piecemeal pictures put together, mosaics of other mutants put together. And he's struggled with that because they become him. In other words, he becomes them and they become him. And I like how they also played this off with the other character, with Sydney, because she kind of does the same thing in a different way, is that she takes over their bodies, and they take over her body.
For a short period of time, and then they switch back.
Which leads to some very awkward situations, as you find out.
Yeah, like her experimenting with her mom's boyfriend.
Yeah, well, and David, doing what every guy would do if they were, not every guy, because I'm sure gay men and women's bodies wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let me. I
think I would have to say that I'm pretty sure that anybody, if they had a body switch, would check themselves out.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't know how long you're going to be in there. At a certain point in time, if you're in their body long enough, you're going to have to take a shower.
Okay.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
All right. You also have here at the very end, very last two episodes, you have when David beats back the Shadow King by help of male Carrie's
Crown?
Yeah, crown device that he puts on him that, kind of limits the Shadow King's abilities, psychically puts him in chains.
Mm-hmm.
Best way to
Buries
put it.
him.
And that I think that's very in line with the whole inner demons thing. Is that there are ways to beat back your inner demons, and it may seem like you've done your best. You kind of put it away. You've kind of hid them away, but they're still there. They're still going to be coming back. And the Shadow King comes back and is almost going to kill David. And was able to contact Sydney and to get the Shadow King out before it killed David. And
well, I see some parallels in, for example, people's coping skills, especially with addiction. Like, even if people haven't. Even if people have it, for example, if they're alcoholics, they will tell you, I'm 5 years sober.
Yeah.
But they still acknowledge the fact that they are still an alcoholic and are addicted to alcohol. And at any point in time, if they slip up and stop using their coping skills or put aside the boundaries that they place for themselves, their inner demon will come out in full force. And that's always in the back of their mind, knowing that I have to be careful about this because it could consume my life again.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, is that there are people who still kind of live in fear of that inner demon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is ways to cope with that, knowing that it's still a part of you, knowing that it's still in there. Well, even though at the very end there, David no longer has the Shadow King part of him, but you could tell that he still struggles with is trying to figure out his power, which is going to be a huge struggle, and that's going to be a whole different demon that he's going to have to fight. Which is why I'm kind of interested to see where he's going to go with season 2, what the theme of that season is going to be. And it is a struggle for each of these people, and this is something that I really wanted to touch on today, because I think that religious communities do a very, very poor job of realizing that, of really kind of speaking to that in people's lives.
Of realizing what?
That people struggle with their inner demons, is that they end up, well, and this is something that we'll talk about in our controversial issues segment, but it is more, instead of helping people, they only want to let the people in that are, clean, as it were. That they don't really show the struggle on the outside.
They want the shiny people to be the ones that everybody sees. They want to hide away all the people who are dirty or have a past.
Yeah. And this is what I love about the show, is that, even the X-Men universe, the whole thing, including the cartoons, the comic books, the movies, everything else, it's always been about reaching out to the ostracized. It's always been about kind of empowering the minority groups, and that's something. That's the reason why I loved the X-Men from the very beginning, was because these were people that were different, that were not exactly normal, and that's what they embraced about them, was that they were not normal, but they made that not normalness to be their strength and to be their greatest ability. And well, besides the fact that I really like Gambit, I wanted to have a bow staff and to throw cards at people.
I liked Gambit, but for another reason.
You just like that Cajun accent.
Okay, maybe. I'm pretty sure he was the first cartoon crush I ever had.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, maybe Jubilee in a weird way.
She's too much of a whiny teenager.
Yeah, I don't think I had a cartoon crush on any of the characters in the show.
Oh, I definitely did. It was definitely Gambit.
Maybe Rogue a little bit.
I could see it. Too bad they're not going to be coming in Legion anytime soon. But
No, and then they did a weird switch up with Rogue in the movies, and yeah, I didn't like that switch up. Anyway, I really think that they did a good job of showing that the mutants had their own community of broken people. That Sid and David, when they first kind of are there with the mutants,
with Melanie and
Yeah.
Melanie's group.
yeah, I don't know if they had a name for themselves. What was the where they had their compound? I don't even think that they had a name for the group of people that were there.
Sure, they did, but I'm not. I can't. I don't know it off the top of my head. But essentially, like Melanie, like has gone out of her way to like gather up these people. Like she actually ended up picking up Sid on accident. Like her plan was actually to get David first, and then one thing led to another, and she accidentally picked up Sydney, which also happened to be
was body swapped at the time with David.
Yep. But luckily for Sydney, she too is also a mutant, and so she was able to find that group of people as well too. So, who knows what would have happened if. What would have happened to Sydney if that's the case? Yeah,
and the point is that that they were very untrusting of them at the start there because they didn't, they thought that they would have been like everyone else in the X-Men universe, and I'm not quite sure on the timing in Legion. Even though
I'm very confused too.
They're wearing like '60s clothes, but everything else kind of points towards it being the late 90s. So
yeah, I'm very confused by that. But
yeah.
Well, I would say that Sydney trusted them more before David did.
Yes, but David kind of led her to mistrust them as well, especially when the Shadow King took over. Mm-hmm. But I think that they both kind of mistrusted them because they felt like they were going to be treated like they were treated in the rest of society at the time, which rest of society viewed them as crazy,
as things to be experimented on.
Yeah, as the mentally ill and putting them into that institution, and I think this is what. I think that most people coming to religious communities are looking for. They're looking for a place to belong. They're looking for a place where they're not going to be treated like the rest of society treats them. And the other, what I'm going to say, the other X-Men, even though they don't call themselves the X-Men, the other X-Men in this show,
mutants. You can call them mutants.
Yeah, the other mutants in the show, they take their time to really show them, the new mutants, that they want them to be a part of the community. They want them there. Mm-hmm.
Well, and they also can see too that even though because Sid and David also have their own inner demons. I mean, David's a little bit more literal than everybody else. Yeah. Throughout the course of the season, like you also learn that everybody else does too. For example, like Melanie is still struggling with possibly never being able to be with her husband again. Mm-hmm. She's still struggling with that loss. With the Carries, I mean, their struggle is themselves. I mean, they sometimes share a body, but they're two souls, but then they also can have different bodies. But they totally have different personalities. I mean, they're not even... and they're not twins. Like, you look at them and they're not, like... They don't look like they could be brother and sister.
Yeah.
You know?
And Oliver, I'm not quite sure what Oliver's demon was that kind of put him into the cryostasis that he was in, and then brought back from. But now he's got the very literal inner
He
demon.
also has a little, yeah.
Um,
Well, and then Amy, her inner demon was at the fact that she had to keep David's adoption a secret.
yeah,
Like, she knew he was adopted. She knew that there was something else to David. Like, throughout the course of the series, like when she was actually talking to the bad guys, I can't remember what group they are, but the guy who had like the eye.
yeah,
The
District 3.
Sure. Is that what
It was
it's
the
called?
bad guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When they have her and are talking to her, like she slowly realizes, oh yeah, you're right. Like he doesn't just have a mental illness. He also like he doesn't have it. He has powers.
Mm-hmm.
So she's struggling with having to keep the secret of his adoption.
Well, and I've talked about this before in another episode, and even in my blog a whole lot, is that that I believe the church to be a hospital. I believe that it's a place where hurting people help other people, where we're all broken, and that's what I think religious communities should be, is a place where broken people reach out to other broken people and show them that, hey, we're all battling our own inner demons. We all have our own issues to deal with, and we got to help each other out through these things, or else we're no better than the next guy. We're no better than District 3. We're no better than...
Well, and the thing I like about the church is because you and I have experienced churches where people are very open with their inner demons. Like they are very open with their personal struggles, and they are so much more welcoming.
Yeah.
Than the other churches where everything is like hush, like everything is, rumors are spreading around instead of like saying, oh yeah, well Joe, like he, used to be a heroin addict, but now, he's been, sober for like the past half year, and this is just something about Joe that everybody knows and everybody's helping him through it. Like it's not some secret, like, and to me, I feel the more people know about your struggle and are able to understand it, the better you are going to be because you don't have to hide it. Because I feel like I've experienced too many people who have tried to hide their struggles, especially in terms of mental illness and addiction, and they aren't able to get the help that they actually need because they're too embarrassed and too afraid.
Yeah. And that's what one of the beautiful things that I'm not quite sure if they brought this up in the new Rockstar video, but I really kind of dawned on me right before we started recording this episode that David had a very literal baptism into this community. Mm-hmm. That he gets dunked into water at the very beginning when they come and rescue him from District 3. Which, is that kind of symbolic baptism into this community, starting this new life into the community.
Well, not only that, like, Sydney has to, like, convince him to do it. She's like, we're here to rescue you. Mm-hmm. We're here to help you. You got to do this. And finally she's able to convince him.
Yeah, it was baptism by fire, because it was fire about it, too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't really see that guy.
The guy who did the fire, that lit the whole room on fire?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But he's still part of the community somewhere. Yeah. So,
same with the guy that likes to throw things.
Wasn't he the one that got killed in the second to last episode? Where he was stabbed and then came back and saved them?
I'm not sure if he was the throwing guy or if he's the fire guy.
I think he was the throwing guy.
For people who have not seen Legion are probably like, what the heck are you talking about?
They need to watch the show. We gave them spoiler warnings.
Or they might be the same people. I don't know. I wasn't paying that much attention to those particular characters. But anyway.
It's probably one of the better depictions of the X-Men. And this is one of the things that, like I said before, is that I love about the X-Men. And if you're not aware... there are many YouTube videos that will tell you now, but if you're not aware that the X-Men were kind of started where Professor X and Magneto were meant to be the comic book equivalents of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Is that is meant to show that struggle of the minorities of these groups that were, and especially the black community is that struggle with trying to be taken seriously and trying to be seen as human beings. Which way is the best way to do it? Yeah, and I mean this is what I think it's become a much larger issue for all of these outsider groups that are now trying to struggle and looking for their own place in the world. And I think that that's why now more than ever, an X-Men show is something that we need. We need something to show that, that we all struggle with our inner demons. We all, have these issues, and we're just looking for a place to belong. We're looking for, some sense of belonging within the much larger world. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's what religious communities should be, but unfortunately, they become...
They want to be shiny. They want to, show the shiny side and hide away the dull backside that nobody takes care of.
I should just open up our controversial issues so that I can actually fully say what I want to say about it. So, yes, I apologize. We're going to move into our controversial issues segment now. So for those of you who don't like this segment of our show, you can turn off the show.
Does anybody not like the controversial issues side?
I don't know.
Have you received feedback from that?
I have not received any feedback about our show.
Yeah, we have no idea. We're just flying by, our wayside. Who knows?
Yeah, we just enjoy doing this, recording this. So
and people sometimes will listen.
Yeah, which is great. We've had a lot of downloads and a lot of listens, so thank you so much for listening. And if before we open up the controversial issue segment, if you're going to drop before the controversial issue segment, let us know that you listen. Give us some feedback. So before I go into the full thing on that at the very end, which we usually do every week. So anyway, opening that up, but I was going to put this second, but I think too often times we see that people see the church as a country club or a museum, that, oh, the walls are white inside. I'm sorry, you're bleeding, you can't come in, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Is that, the church is meant to be a hospital. These religious groups, no matter what they are, if they're Muslim, if they're Jewish, if they're Christian, if they're Hindu or whatever, that these places are meant to be communities of people all struggling with their own issues together, not separately, but together. That's the problem that we have and the biggest thing is that we have these communities. We attract some of the people who have these mental illnesses that manifest in ways that are bullying each other. We have people who have attention, disorders that end up, lashing out at other people in churches because this is the community that they came to, and then their issue becomes the only issue that church deals with, rather than the full breadth of everybody's issues. And I know that's hard to do. I know it's hard to individualize care for each and every person, but that's the big thing, is that we are all broken people. We are all supposed to be helping each other out, not just the priests, not just the lay people of the community. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sorry, I see this is something that I feel very strongly about, is because, so many times I've been hurt by the church when I bring up any one of my issues. And that's, I brought up in a way that was supposed to be not a part of the church community, but was a very, my own blog was used against me when I had, expressed my struggle with anxiety. It was told to me that it was not becoming of a person who worked with other people in the church. And I'm not going to go into where that was. I'm not going to go into any of that stuff. But that's one of those things that I'm saying, is that instead of saying, "Oh yes, we're going to help you and we're going to keep you on here," And I'm so glad that you actually opened up about it, so that now we can actually help you, and you can actually help other people who are struggling with this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they said, "Oh yeah, you're going to have to keep it outside."
Yeah. And that's not good, because then, like, how are the people who are struggling, with the same struggles as you, going to know that they're still welcome? They're going to try to hide it and try to keep it away from everybody because they feel like they can't bring that struggle into the church to get help.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is, as society as a whole, with mental illness, with any mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
with any mental struggle, is that people want to pretend like it doesn't exist. Is that we don't,
Mm-hmm.
we end up pointing fingers at it. We end up saying, "Oh, we don't help those who are mentally ill," when in essence, all of us, every single human being on this planet has a mental illness. We all struggle with an inner demon, and we want to pretend like we don't, but each and every one of us does.
Even if it's like something small, like me, like I have not been diagnosed with anything. However, in the past, I have been prone to have anxiety attacks. I do have depression spells, and that is something I am very aware of. And I do it because, one, I have a family history of those things, and I just want to make sure that if it does come to the point to where I need help, I'm able to recognize the fact that I need help and get the help that I need before it becomes a major problem.
Well, and that's the thing, is that everyone can do with help.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is, and that's one of the wonderful things that about the ACA, the American Healthcare Act, was that so many health insurance providers covered mental illness from that point on, and nobody realized that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you can actually go and see somebody now. You can actually go and be like, "Hey, look, I need to get this figured out."
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just like an hour worth of therapy, which everyone can deal with, can use an hour worth of therapy, is be like, "Hey, I need to talk about this with somebody," and get it out in the open. And that's a part of thing, is that we need to embrace who we are, embrace those things that we struggle with, embrace what makes us us.
And you shouldn't be ashamed of it. I think that the problem that I have with it, like the biggest problem I have with it, is when people like tell you to like hush it up and like not to tell anybody. You start to become ashamed. It's like, oh, like, am I strange? Like, does nobody else deal with this? Like, am I just some like odd person? And it does not help the situation. Like, you're already feeling bad about, having your struggles, and the fact that other people are telling you that you need to hide them and keep them out of, everybody else's, viewpoint, just, it makes the struggle that much harder, because now you're trying to like push it even further and hide it even further, which is not healthy.
No, it actually gives it a much stronger foothold. It
Mm-hmm.
makes it much stronger in your life.
Well, especially for those who struggle with anxiety, because now you're anxious about the fact that you told somebody
That you're anxious.
Yes.
I know, it's very ironic. So that's my biggest controversial issue. And what's funny is that this show makes it very open and out there, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what so many shows are making, to be very out there things. And we'll eventually get back to This Is Us and doing some of the other episodes. But there was that episode with Randall with that struggle with anxiety. Is
Mm-hmm.
that part of it too. And sorry, our dog is like having a sleep tremor in the background. He's kind of wagging his feet on the ground. So if you hear scratching, that's what it is. It's our dog.
He's having a dream.
But there's another also controversial issue about this, is that smart shows,
Mm-hmm.
like this one, this is a very smart show. It goes very in deep, but it also balances that with the action, which I think is really good. I don't think it's going to be, of course, it's not going to be canceled anytime soon, because it still has that action in there. but it's still a very, very smart show. Which I think that too many times networks cancel the smart shows because they don't reach the lowest common denominator. They don't reach the majority of people. I think that Timeless started off this way this last season, and then midway through they kind of became too self-aware that they were a smart show.
Yeah, and then
they got weird. Yeah,
I didn't enjoy it after a while.
There were so many of these shows that I could point to that I'm like, that's a smart show, and then it got canceled in their first season because it was too smart.
Yep. Well, and same with movies are the same way. Like for example, Transformers are not good movies, and yet they keep making them. And the only reason why they keep making them is because you get those people who think
it's a good movie,
but they judge movies on the amount of action.
Yeah.
Which action does help move the plot along. But it should not be the main focus. Like, I hate the movies where, like, all of a sudden they'll just jump, like, plot points, and you're like, wait, hold on. How did you get to this point? Like,
yeah.
Like, this escalated really quickly. There had to have been other stuff involved.
Or that Deus Ex Machina that, kind of jumps in there because they wrote themselves into a paper bag. And,
Yeah.
Like Matrix 2 and 3. Anyway, we need to wrap this up because we're running out of time. But anyway, just wanted to say thank you so much again for listening. If you stuck with us all the way through our controversial issue segment, awesome. Thank you. Let us know. Provide us some feedback. I think what we're going to do here soon is maybe have some stickers made or something that we'll send out to you. Send us your address and let us know that you're a listener, and we'll send you a sticker, and we'll be like, hey, I listen to Honest Faith Conversations. You guys should too. Stickers or something like that. I don't know. I'll come up with
yeah. Well, how about we'll do the first 10 people.
First 10 people?
First 10 people to contact us,
We'll
say that
stickers.
They listen. Yeah, whether that be...
We'll personalize them.
Whether that be through...
Twitter at Real Honest Faith, or by Facebook at Real Honest Faith as well. Let's see. Although you can just search The Honest Faith and
on the website you can leave a comment on the website as well too, say that you listen.
By email at honestfaithconversations@gmail.com. You can also find me on Reddit. I'm actually going to start a subreddit here soon for us, which will be a very lonely subreddit for a while, I'm sure. But you can find us on Tumblr. All of our shows are posted to Tumblr. Let's see, where else can you find us?
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, we've got a few shows posted on SoundCloud, but I don't think you can interact on SoundCloud all that much. You can find us on Spreaker. Spreaker does have a good community there. I also, they're not paying us to say this or anything. In fact, we pay them at this point in time. But they are a great community for podcasters. It's a great place to get your start as a podcaster. If you've been thinking about doing that, go there. It's not that expensive. Anyway, with all that being said, give us some feedback. So, we know that you're listening.
First 10 people get stickers.
First 10 people get stickers. Personalized stickers. All right. So, with all that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.